If you think Aria is easy to play, think again. Well, arguably, her actual inputs are not really that difficult, but routing the fight and managing all of the team's buffs correctly while also setting her up just right is not as braindead as many have painted this character to be at all. In fact, you can easily see a 15 to 20,000 score difference between playing and building her right and, well, not doing that. Alright, and speaking of building her right, Shining Aria also is even up with freaking Dawn's Bloom. I guess you did not see that one coming. Anyway, all my budget for the next half a year went to Nangongyu, so instead let's have a normal intro and talk about her kit and how she plays. Her best weapons, destroys and destroy sets, her combos, her minion substats, her teams and Mindscapes, and lastly, let's also talk about her pros and cons. Welcome, I'm Rivenous, and this is your complete XXL in-depth guide to Aria. Aria is an ether anomaly agent who specializes in blooms. A lot of blooms and very strong ones at that. Aria excels in dealing most of her damage during stun, and at least as of right now, it is clear she is missing a third team member. Okay, to be fair, that was hopefully glaringly obvious, but even without Nangongyu, Aria is an extremely potent anomaly DPS who also is at least at the baseline simple to play, but her team rotations are not necessarily. Let's begin with her unique resource, Fandom Power. Fandom Power is indicated on the field, and also right below her HP bar, but honestly, these guys are just too cute to not show. Regardless, her Fandom Power is kept at 8 stacks, and you cannot overstack. Which also means managing her resources and not wasting any stacks is pretty important when playing her. Aria can generate Fandom Power through various ways. 1 stack from her basic 4 and 2nd special, 3 stacks from each of her EX specials, 4 stacks from her chain attack, and another 4 stacks when an ether veil is activated, well, and also 4 stacks from her ultimate, but that is because it opens an ether veil. Knowing how we can obtain her unique resource, let's talk about what we even need it for. Holding down the basic attack button will have Aria charge up to 3 levels, then unleash a stomp attack when either reaching max charge or when releasing the basic button. If Aria has any Fandom Power, she will consume 1 Fandom Power to increase her charge level by 1, or in other words, we want 2 Fandom Power for each charged basic attack we do, as it will instantly grant us the max charge level. Additionally, for each stack of Fandom Power consumed, the next Stomp attack will increase the inflicted anomaly by 10%, and lastly, she can quickly transition into a Stomp attack after her basic 4, special, EX special, a level 3 Stomp, quick assist, chain attack or ultimate, or in other words, basically everything she does, well, outside of her basic 1 to 3. Honestly, her charged basic attacks description is basically bloatware. If you have at least 2 Fandom stacks, hold basic to make a Stomp attack, consuming 2 stacks, and that is really all there is to it. Aria also features a 4-part basic attack string, and the 4th hit will generate us 1 Fandom Power. We will actively use them, but that also is all there is to it. Aria features 2 specials and also 2 EX specials. Frankly, we will basically never use her first special, but at least her second special has some niche application to additional Fandom Power generation. It can only be used directly after her basic 4, assist follow-up, chain or ultimate, and it will also generate 1 Fandom Power. Both of her EX specials cost 40 energy, and her second EX special can only be cast after her first one. It has some applications, but also a long animation time, so we will actually rarely use this. Regardless, however, both EX specials will generate 3 Fandom Power upon use, and we will very frequently use the first one. There isn't much more to her EX, honestly. It serves primarily as a way to maintain Phaethons, her signature weapon, and also as a Fandom Power generator. Her dodge, dash, and dodge counter work as we would expect them to work, and while her dodge and dash do not reset her basic attack string, and her dodge counter can directly be followed up with her basic 3, there also really isn't much more to them. The same can be said for her quick assist, parry, and assist follow-up. They work as we would expect them to work, and we will use them a lot, but there is not much more to them. Aria's chain attack also works as we want it to work, and because it generates 4 Fandom Power, we will use this. However, we will rarely ever do double chains on her, as there simply is not enough time for it, as we will see later. Aria's ultimate has a lot of text again for being pretty simple. Upon cast, Aria will open up Aether Veil Delusion Surprise, and because of that, she will gain 4 Fandom Power stacks. She will then also gain 3 stacks of all-out cheering, which simply serve as 6 Fandom Power stacks that can overcap, and lastly, Aria will enter the Moment of Delusion state for 15 seconds, enhancing her basic attack to a slightly more powerful version. It should also be mentioned that her ultimate has an insane anomaly application, which can be very relevant later on when talking about her sets. Alright. Time to talk about her core, which serves as the, core to her entire kit. First up, Aria gains a flat-out 90 AP, and if Aria lands a level 3 charged basic attack, she will trigger a bloom. A bloom's damage is based on the original anomaly damage as well as her anomaly mastery, and if the target is stunned, those blooms deal 50% more damage. Please note the wording damage ratio, as this is a true 50% damage multiplier and not a simple damage bonus. If your blooms were to do 1 million damage out of stun, it will now do 1.5 million during stun. This damage ratio buff is extremely potent, and getting as many stun windows as possible is iterative to optimizing Aria's teams. Assuming 3 stuns, she already will deal a majority of her damage during stun. Lastly, for her additional ability, she requires either a stun or support character, and if that condition is fulfilled whenever Aether Veil is activated, she will gain 4 Fandom Power. Additionally, the duration of corruption is also extended by 3 seconds. Because her additional abilities condition is this easy to fulfill, I have previously simply taken this as part of her base kit. It is honestly very difficult to not have this active. Most of her damage comes from her blooms as well as corruption, so frankly outside of her core skill, none of her skill levels matter too much. If you want to optimize her damage output, however, focus first and foremost on her core skill, then her basics, followed by her EX, ultimate and assist, and lastly dodge. I also want to emphasize that I would recommend leveling her assist as high as possible, as she really wants the days and you will parry with her frequently. Let's talk about some addendums. First up, I want to talk about Suna. During Aria's stomp attack, Suna will join her on field. While this does not significantly matter for Suna's own signature weapon, it does matter a lot for Weeping Cradle, as Suna is now not off-field anymore. Due to that, Suna does not gain the off-field energy regeneration, making it significantly worse as an option. If you don't have Suna's signature and have been running Weeping Cradle up until now, you want to switch it up to Kaboom the Cannon for Aria teams. Because Aria gains 2 stomp charges each time Suna uses her second EX special, due to it opening Aether Veil, missing out on energy regeneration on Suna from her weapon here can have a significant impact. Which is a great way to talk about Suna's disk drive sets and main stats. Because Aria relies heavily on stun windows, as already teased in my Suna guide, which you can check out here, running a 2-piece King of the Summit or Shockstar Disco with Impact in slot 6 is her best layout, as it allows this team to hit 3 stun windows. Frankly, hitting 3 full stun windows is extremely difficult even with this, but if you care about optimizing, this is your way of being able to do so. Make sure to allocate most parries and assist follow-ups to Suna if you choose to go this route. Because we are ideally running a double support composition with Yuzua and Suna upon Aria's release at least, we cannot have both Suna and Yuzua on Moonlight Lullaby. Instead, we want to play a 4-piece Astral Voice on Yuzua. I want to emphasize that we want Estful Voice on Yuzua and not on Suna. We will need Suna's frequent EX specials for maintaining Moonlight Lullaby, as well as refreshing Ether Veil for a maximum number of charged basic attacks, and hence a Blooms also from Aria during stun, and running Moonlight on Suna is the best way to allow for this. We will see exactly why that is during the gameplay breakdown and the combo section in a bit. Nearly all of Aria's damage is allocated into her corruptions and blooms, and most of her damage dealt is during stun, even without Nangong Yu. Small spoiler, but Shining Aria is not a good set, and as of right now pretty significantly behind Faithon's Melody and even up with Freaking Dawn's Bloom for that matter. Whether or not Nangong Yu will change this, I don't know yet, but we will see that upon her release. But that also means we likely want to run a 4-piece Faithon's Melody, and because this set requires us to use the EX special of another character to gain the ether damage bonus, it is super important for us to space out Suna's EX special correctly right before and during stun. And because we want frequent access to Suna's EX special, again, ER is becoming very important on Suna. This becomes also even more emphasized when taking into account that Suna opens an Ether Veil, granting Aria 4 Phantom Power, and with Aria's Chain Attack granting 4 stacks as well. Because we cannot overstack, we want to make sure to not waste any stacks. Ideally, we want to aim for 12 stomps per stun window, with 10 or ideally 11 stomps landing during stun and the last one out of stun. All of this requires careful planning and spacing of Suna's EX special, Aria's chain attacks, and also Aria's own EX specials, as well as her ultimate. And while Aria in itself is not the most difficult character to play, routing the team for maximum damage is not as braindead as many people have painted her to be. Alright, enough yapping, let's talk about her 4 relevant combos. Out of stun, we want to focus primarily on parries and preparing her stun window. I will talk more about this during the gameplay breakdown. However, we will find ourselves in situations where we can and also should simply stomp outside of stun. To generate the necessary resources for that, we have a few simple combos. Her first combo is basic 1, 2, 3 and 4 into her special. This will generate us 2 Phantom Power, or in other words 1 charged basic attack. Because her dodge counter and quick assist lead directly into her basic 3, we have also a slight variation of this, of either quick assist or dodge counter into basic 3 and 4 into her special. When the enemy suffers the corruption anomaly, we can then also spend our stacks. Because of how her signature W engine works, and to make this as independent on teammates as possible, if we have 5 Phantom Power stacks or less, we can use her EX special, then proceed to hold down basic attack and use her stomp 4 times. Please make sure that the enemy has an active corruption, as it will otherwise not trigger a bloom, and if it does not have corruption but instead has, I don't know, assault active, well, you will deal a lot less damage. Let's talk about her stun combo. Frankly, we will not require Suna for this, but Suna makes this significantly easier, and hence I will use her for this example. We require at least 1 Phantom Power stack before stun, and we want to make sure to use Suna's first EX special right before stun as well. This will apply Moonlight Lullaby, and if we don't stun using it, we can also use the quick assist to transfer the Estful Voice buff to Aria, which is honestly something I would recommend, but I didn't do it in this clip. We then open the stun window with Aria's EX special, which we immediately animation cancel with her ultimate. This EX special is optional if you have 4 or more Phantom Power stacks. This will trigger the stun window and we will cancel the chain prompt. We then hold her basic for 7 stomps in total and swap cancel the last stomp into Suna. We press Suna's second EX special right upon enter to reapply Moonlight Lullaby, open Ether Veil for 4 additional Phantom Power, and also trigger Faithon's Melody on Aria. We then select Aria. We cancel the chain and hold basic again for another 4 stomps. We can also lastly use Aria's EX special to refresh Faithon's Melody anomaly proficiency buff and add in another stomp. Frankly, depending on how fast you are, it is possible that the last 1 stomp will land outside stun, and that is okay. Focus on getting at the very least 10, ideally 11 charged basic attacks in during stun. Regardless of which set you run, however, this is basically near always her ideal stun rotation, as we do not have more time for more stomps. If the boss allows for it, you can precast the ultimate and have the first stomp trigger the stun, but this is extremely difficult to time right, so it is not consistent. But if you were to do this, it would allow for 1 more stomp during stun, which would be a total of 12. Also, if you are playing with Dawn's Bloom, it is super important to build up the anomaly using her basic attacks for the highest possible corruption and the bloom damage. Because her ultimate will basically always and instantly fully apply corruption due to its insane anomaly application, you basically need to make sure to nearly waste all of the ultimate's anomaly build up by using it shortly before corruption is triggered. This is not necessarily easy to play around, but even without taking too much care about it, Dawn's Bloom will perform just fine. Knowing her combos, let's have a look at how this looks in a real scenario. I am running 4 Pith Phaetons in this run, and because I don't want to miss out on the 45 anomaly proficiency the set gives me upon using an EX special, that is the very first thing I do. I make sure to not hit the boss with it, however, as I want to build as less anomaly as possible before having all the buffs up, as it would lower the first corruptions and hence also a bloom's damage. However, we need to build some anomaly at least, so I proceed to basic attack on Aria. I parry with Suna and Yuzua as needed and fill the downtime in between with Aria's basics to continue building anomaly. I then use Suna's first EX special and quick assist into Aria right before the control skill phase. This is the first Astral Voice stack. I parry 4 times as needed and make sure I end the control skill on Yuzua, which allows me to instantly cast her shortened EX special and quick assist into Suna for the second Astral Voice stack. I proceed to use Suna's second EX special, and that will refresh Moonlight Lullaby and give us the full 3 Astral Voice stacks on Aria upon using the quick assist. I use Aria's EX special to fill up the rest of the anomaly, then proceed to hold down basic for 4 stomp attacks, then use her EX to refresh fandom power and parry on Yuzua, Aria and lastly again on Suna. I now use Suna's EX special and instantly swap cancel it into Aria's ultimate, then cancel the chain prompt. I proceed to stomp 7 times and swap cancel the 7th stomp into Suna using her second EX special. This will retrigger the stun, refresh Moonlight Lullaby and also provide 4 fandom stacks due to it opening Ether Veil. I select Aria, cancel the chain and proceed with 4 more stomps. At the very end, I then can cast another EX special on Aria to refresh Phaeton's Melody, and depending on what the boss chooses to do now, I can either continue to stomp or simply parry. Because the second control skill's intermission provides 45% daze, it is totally fine ignoring some of the parries here to instead stomp a few more times on Aria for more damage. As long as we hit around 50% daze before the boss goes into intermission, we are good to go. Honestly, most of the fight plays out the same, and the only real breaking point is the third phase where the camera becomes utter dog. You are fighting versus the RNG of which moveset the boss decides to use. If you cannot hit the third stun with at least 20 seconds left, you are missing out on a lot of damage. Because the entire third phase is basically a fight against the camera and RNGs, this fight requires a lot of resets to score well and unfortunately most of these resets are late into the fight. You will find the full run at the end of the video. For now, let's talk about her weapons. Aria's best in slot weapon is her signature, hopefully to nobody's surprise. If you have Vivian's Flight of Fancy, it is the next best choice. It should also be mentioned that Flight of Fancy will perform worse the better your investment is, as Anomaly Proficiency is a substat obtainable stat, and Anomaly Mastery, damage bonus and also Anomaly damage are not. But especially for lowly invested Arias, Flight of Fancy is honestly a good alternative. Otherwise, as per usual, Weeping Gemini is the next best free-to-play alternative. As a side note for the new boss, which my calculations are based upon, it does not allow you to trigger 4 corruptions in between each stun window, making Weeping a worse choice than the Battle Pass weapon. Choose whatever you have available and whatever is higher in the list. Oh boy, imagine skipping right here and this is what you see. Yes, Shining Aria is not a good set. Yes, she already deals 67% of her damage during stun without Nangongye. And yes, a 4-piece Shining Aria still loses out to not only a 4-piece Phaeton's Melody, but is also basically even with a 4-piece Dawn's Bloom. It is also important my calculations assume 3 stuns, which means that Dawn's Bloom has the potential to be better than Shining Aria. Will this change when Nangongye releases? I don't know, probably and hopefully yes, but we will see. But at least as of right now, a 4-piece Phaeton's Melody paired with a 2-piece Freedom Blues is her best layout, and that is by an honestly significant margin. If you have great Dawn's Bloom anomaly pieces, a 4-piece Dawn's Bloom will work as well, and if you decide to run this, please make sure to handle your corruptions accordingly as explained during the combo section. Frankly, I would not recommend a 4-piece Dawns for most people, but it can perform evenly with Shining Aria even when not optimized, and it also is paired with Moonlight Lullaby, so maybe if you need to farm that, it's a possibility. Regardless, however, at least for now, use a 4-piece Phaethon's Melody if you can. It is significantly better than her own set and also Dawn's Bloom, and even more so if you cannot reach 3 stun windows. At least her main stats do not bring any surprises. Anomaly Proficiency in slot 4, Ether Damage in slot 5, and Anomaly Mastery in slot 6 are her best choices. As for her substats, focus on Anomaly Proficiency and Attack percent, then Flat Pen, and lastly Flat Attack. Attack percent becomes a better substat when not playing with Sona and User due to attack saturation, and Flat Pen is especially meaningful versus low defense bosses such as her own Shill boss. Because I've done basically all calculations so far using a 4-piece Shining Aria in hopes that it becomes better with Nangong Yu, and I also don't want this guide to be outdated in half a month, let me provide you with some more calculations using her current best layout. Namely, a 4-piece Phaethon's Melody paired with a 2-piece Freedom Blues, Anomaly Proficiency in slot 4, Ether Damage in slot 5, and Anomaly Mastery in slot 6, 12 attack percent subs and 12 Anomaly Proficiency subs, assuming 3 stuns. Honestly, the calculations don't really change much, but anyway. These are the calculations for her signature, pause if you need to. These are the calculations if you run Flight of Fancy instead, again, pause if you need to. And lastly, if you decide to run Weeping Gemini, again, pause if you need to. Aria's Mindscapes are good, and also not that great at the same time. Her Mindscape 1 grants her additional Ether Anomaly build up from her basic special and EX, and this makes primarily Dawn's Bloom better. What a wild sentence to say for an Anomaly agent. Frankly, otherwise, this build up does not really matter. You already get 18 to 19 corruptions anyway, which basically is the entire time, so there is no time to get more. Anyway, additionally, her blooms can now crit, reaching 100% crit rate at 250 Anomaly Mastery, which means this Mindscape plays in tandem with her signature and is significantly worse without it. As for Mindscape 2, it grants her 16% defense threat, increased to 24% while in her Moment of Delusion ultimate state. Frankly, because the new boss has half defense, this Mindscape is surprising against it. On the other hand, it also becomes better when playing Aria, for example, versus Miasmic Fiend. Her M3 and M5 don't matter, and her Mindscape 4 basically guarantees you 4 ultimates. But because you can get that without the M4, this Mindscape doesn't really change anything within my calcs. For most people, this will be a very small but not very significant damage gain. Her M6 is really cool and honestly pretty good as it builds upon her M2. She gains access to her ultimate faster now, and upon casting it once, Aria will not leave the Moment of Delusion state anymore and remain in it permanently. This also means her M2 now provides a permanent 24% death threat. Additionally, Aria can now obtain an additional all-out cheering stack up to once every 6 seconds, with each stack allowing for an additional stomp. Realistically, you can expect at the very least 12 and more likely around 18 to 20 stomps from this, depending on the enemy and how you play, because there honestly is not too much time left to actively use them, but with the absolute maximum being somewhere around 28-7, which you frankly will never reach. I assumed an additional 12 stomps out of stun, and that means my calculations are likely to be more on the lower side. Regardless, this is a very good Mindscape, with a lot of potential to be even higher and possibly one of the best Mindscape 6s in the game. Because her Mindscape 1 depends on the Anomaly Mastery from her weapon, I would recommend her weapon above her M1, and a good stopping point is her M1 honestly, primarily because Death Threat does surprisingly not do too much versus the recent bosses given their defense being halved, and this seems to be a trend going forward. Frankly, Aria is the more or less first non-disorder anomaly DPS who wants all the field time she can get, especially during stun, and the difference between a solo carry Aria team and any other team is significant. Yes, you can clear using another team that is not Aria, Sona and Yuzua, obviously, but do not expect the greatest performance if you care about very high scores. The two teams that come by far the closest to a premium team are with Lycaon or Dialyn, with Dialyn being better than Lycaon versus her own boss due to the 40% ice resistance. Both teams play well and can also perform just good enough, but you will notice the lack of either Suna or Yuzua. I also want to give a special shout out to Trigger, who does not get her additional ability in this team, but Anomaly Proficiency Trigger can yet again do somewhat well. A Trigger team does better versus Miasmic Fiend than her own boss, mainly due to Trigger's signature defense strat being simply better if the enemy has actually defense. If you are lacking either of Suna or Yuzua and you like Vivian, she can take either of their spot, but frankly, this team is just quite a bit behind Nadia Hyper Carry team, and Vivian's additional blooms do not make up for this. Definitely one of the better teams as of Aria's release, however, mainly due to how the Anomaly Shield buff and Deadly Assault works. You better play either Anomaly or you don't play any Anomaly at all. Yanagi or any other Anomaly unit for that matter can take the spot in the last slot as well, and yes, again, it can clear, but there is a significant difference in power level, and I would much rather recommend a solo Aria carry team. Lastly, if you don't have Suna, Zhao can take her spot, and while Suna is just a lot better, I did want to mention this possibility due to Zhao's access to Ether Veil. This is probably also a good spot to talk about Suna as long as she is still on banner right now. If you plan on playing Aria, I would highly recommend getting Suna, as the difference between having all the idols versus not having them is honestly pretty big, and it should not be underestimated. A 15 to 20k score difference for me is not that much of a biggie, as going from 60k to 40k is still a clear, but if you are a player who sometimes struggles to hit 20k in Deadly Assault, you might not be happy with Aria's performance otherwise. Pros and cons. As just established, Aria's performance depends heavily on her team, and there is a significant difference between having Suna and Yuzua and not having them. At least for now, that is. Aria's investment in terms of skill levels is very cheap, and it is likely you already have a great 4-piece Faithon's Melody on your account. On the other hand, if you pre-farm Shining Aria, well, let's hope that it does get better with Nangongyu's release. Aria does significant damage and is a pretty simple to play agent at a baseline, but also has quite some depth to her that exceeds hold left click when optimizing her routing. Or in other words, her skill floor is low and her ceiling... I wouldn't say high, maybe somewhere in the middle to higher end. Lots of room for optimization is what I mean. Aria does not need her signature weapon and has a good alternative in Flight of Fancy, but if you skip Vivian's signature, understandably, her weapon is pretty good and I probably would recommend getting it regardless, even if she does not need it. Lastly, her Mindscapes are, well, her M6 is fantastic. Her M1 and M2 are okay, and especially the M2 does not really shine versus recent bosses due to their reduced defense, however. And that is all I have to say about Aria. And that means with that we are at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave me a comment on whether or not you are getting Aria, and also maybe let me know if you are surprised that she might not be as easy as you thought, and of course join the Discord. A special thanks to all of my YouTube and Patreon members who make this content possible. Thank you so much for your support. If you wish to support me, you will find a link to my Patreon in the description, or simply click the join button right below this video. And as always, I appreciate all of you and wish you a great day. Enjoy the showcase. Peace!